you at?
Right now, or
Well, okay, no. Let's talk about your hometown, then we'll talk about the
yeah.
trip you're on.
So I'm from Miami originally, born and raised there, South Florida. And right now I currently live in Orlando, Florida. It's about 4 hours north of Miami. I spent about 3 years, 2019 till this past August in Tampa in the Clearwater area, and then just moved to Orlando. So
Why the move to Orlando?
just relocating for being closer to family and stuff. I was working for a company in Tampa and didn't really have any family there, and they have an office in Orlando, so I kind of was able to bargain and negotiate my way into having some Orlando transition, and it's just a little bit better for family stuff. So
The weather's good. Chris, what do you got?
No, I was gonna say Shannon and I went to Orlando on her anniversary on her honeymoon. So it's in February of 2009, and when we get there, it is 17 degrees. She goes and gets in the ocean. I stay in the truck and feed the seagulls French fries. I'm not getting in that cold water.
right.
No way. That was not what I expected for Orlando weather. But
No, you guys must have come on like the one cold day of the year. I
for
remember.
one cold day, yeah, we got it.
Okay, so you're definitely a Florida guy. You're right in the middle of Florida in Orlando, but from Miami.
Right.
Um, I remember from your Facebook where your family's from.
Yeah.
Just from you sharing your personal story, but you can talk more about where you're from, or we can talk about this trip you're on.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm born and raised in Miami. I'm first generation Cuban American, born in Miami. So my mom she was born in Cuba as a really young girl. I mean, she moved to the United States. She was very young, like, you know, I want to say under a year old with my grandmother. They got out of Cuba. Situations there has been pretty awful the last 50 something years. And so my grandmother, no education really, grew up on the island and then moved with my mom um, in the late 60s to the United States. They came to Florida, moved to New York. She was there till she was around 10 or 11, then went to Texas for a year, back to New York till she was about 15, and then moved to Miami and has been there the whole time. And, she ended up, hey, Matt. Oh, got it. That's Matt. He runs a pool for Sioux Falls. Anyhow, so she had moved back down to Miami, went to high school, and then had me very young. She had me around 19. And parents don't really have anything, you end up having a kid very early on in life. She could have easily been a statistic, just lived off welfare, gone that whole route, but she's too hardworking for all that stuff. She found a business that she likes. She hustled a lot when I was young. Kind of grew up a little bit, poor family, but
Uh-huh.
she had a bunch of little odds and end jobs and, kind of hustled her way through and found this auto business stuff that she really kind of got a liking to. And it became something that she worked on and then eventually started her own business. And now she's a really successful entrepreneur and raised my brother and I to adulthood. And then she met my stepdad when I was around 6 or so, and they've been together ever since. They're raising 2 kids now, so she's doing really well. Successful business owner and multiple properties and kind of living the American dream. You know what I mean? She really taught me the ethic of hard work and what it takes to be successful in life, and I kind of try and model that in my own
Is that where
approach
you
to.
get your discipline from?
Yeah, I mean, we had to figure stuff out. You know what I mean? Like I had a little brother that grew up with me and, he always wanted to do the same thing I wanted to do. And like karate lessons get expensive and things like that. You know what I mean? So a lot of that, we couldn't really do coming up. Now, my younger brother and sister who are 10 and 7, they're completely spoiled. They live a whole different life.
Yeah,
They're
yeah, yeah.
completely removed from the childhood that I grew up with. But it definitely equipped me, you know what I mean, to like just have a tough mindset and figure out how to do things for yourself. You really want to, get involved in something. You got to put your all into it to get
We
better.
are
So
we are going to get into mindset.
yeah.
in this interview, we're gonna ask you a little bit about mindset on the pool table, but I'm sure that it stems from your upbringing and those type of character qualities that you have. I'm sure that's where it comes from.
Yeah, I think you know, pool, like anything in life, is really a reflection. It's a mirror, you know, you get to look into it and see yourself, and it's very honest. And the people that get comfortable with that idea of like seeing themselves truthfully where they're at are the ones and lean into that. Those are the ones that learn to succeed. I think a lot of people nowadays don't they want to avoid the pain, you know, the struggle of like, oh, this is an area that needs work,
Mhm.
can improve on. And so those are people that kind of stagnate. And I remember growing up in the pool room, and I would walk in and I'd ask people, you know, how's it going? And the standard response was always same stuff, different day. And I'm like, man, really? Same stuff, different day? That always never sat with me. You know what I mean? Because I'm like, they've been here for longer than I've been alive, and I'm sure they've had that same response forever, and literally nothing ever changes for them. So that to me never really sat well. I was like, I kind of came up and I was like, I'm gonna get better as good as I can, as fast as I can. And I really, you know, I was eager for information. I was eager to get help from people. I would ask better players, you know, starting off playing handicap tournaments or whatever. I'm like, hey, what's one thing you see in my game that I can improve on? And I was open to that information right away.
Okay, let me
And
get into our first question then.
okay, yeah.
Yeah?
Go ahead.
Okay. Because it fits right in with what you just said. Okay,
Right.
first I gotta know how old you are now.
Mhm.
How old are you?
35.
35. Okay.
Yeah.
And then how old were you when you began playing pool?
So I remember being around pool a lot when I was a little kid. And like I had a Fisher Price table, a little 3-in-1 pool, air hockey, table tennis type of thing. And then I remember the first time I played pool with my dad, we walked into a little dingy bar somewhere in Miami, somewhere. I was running around with him, and I remember just walking in and like dimly lit, you know, little table here, little table there, hearing the click of the balls, going to the table. I remember making my first ball in the
How
side
old?
pocket.
How old? How old?
That must have been probably around 4 or 5, somewhere around there. And I remember that feeling, and I was just like, wow, what a cool feeling that was, you know? And so I remember
Yes.
like it became like I want to pursue this, right? And so it became like a weekend thing. The family would go out to dinner like on a Friday night or something. We go have chicken wings somewhere and then go to the pool room. And I remember climbing the stairs to go to the pool room and like just really enjoying being out with my parents, like playing pool. And it was just like a very cool environment. They'd have little terrible nacho chips and cheese out of a dispenser somewhere that's probably not really real cheese. And
We're talking about in Miami, right?
yeah, back in Miami, yeah. And
Okay.
so the pool room that I grew up in was called Sharpshooters. And I remember telling my mom, I was like, you know, I think I want to do this. Like I want to learn. But they weren't really in the pool scene. They didn't know how to facilitate that. You know what I mean? So we would just go on weekends. You know, like my 13th birthday, I remember they're like, what do you want to do? Like, what do you want to do for your birthday? I'm like, I just want to go play pool. You know, so they're like, all right, cool. Just another night out. We'll just go have a good time, go play pool. And
So
that
what
I was
age? What age were it was? Look, I know how much of a competitive pool player you are, and
yeah,
if they don't already know you, then they'll know on
yeah.
this interview what level of a competitor you are. But how old were you when that competitive desire kicked in?
Yeah, so I think I was always hyper competitive in elementary school. Like I just wanted to be the best at everything. Probably because of some father figure issue stuff when I was a little kid. But I was like, I'm gonna be just like as good as I can. And so when I found pool, it actually gave me something that I loved that I also wanted to be good at. So right, I think when I was in going into high school, in my high school, they had 2 8-foot tables in this little rec deck area, 2 8-foot tables and a table tennis table. And I just spent all my free time there. And I was like, oh, finally, I have something that I can, you know, I can self-actualize with, right? And then in my high school, they gave us because it was a magnet program. I had to take a bus super early in the morning to get to school and take Metro Transit. They give you a Metro card or like a transit card that you can hop on as many buses as you want. And it was part of getting the kids to be able to get to the school. And so I started taking the bus to the pool room on the weekends and stuff. and I have this Metro card, and then I would ride my bike and take the bus to the pool room. So right around when I was like 15 or 16, I started realizing like, oh, I can go take care of this myself. I don't need my parents to help me out or whatever. And I remember being on TV and watching an interview on ESPN. Tony Robles had just won the BCA Open 9-ball championship. It was back in 2002
On
and
ESPN.
on ESPN, and they'd interviewed him and asked him, how did you, get good at pool? And he mentioned that he read 2 books. He read Steve Mizrak's Complete Book of Pool and the 99 Critical Shots of Pool.
Ray Martin.
Yeah, and that started his billiards learning journey. And I was like, of course they make books. Like, of course there's I was like, why didn't I think of that? You know what I mean? Like, what am I thinking? So the next day I'm at Barnes and Noble and I go, boom, right for the sports aisle. And sure enough, there are the 2 books. I picked them up and I just inhaled those 2 books. Like the Steve Mizrax was really about like learning the bridging and the different like stances and techniques and stuff. But the 99 Critical Shots, I was just like, I got to learn this shot. You know what I mean? So then it became something I could follow. And then that became like, okay, this is really cool. Now I can learn, now I can build some skill. And then when I started going to the pool room, then you kind of get into this, oh, there's this ecosystem here. There's people that compete. There's different levels. I found out there was a guy there who would clean tables and get free pool time. And I was like, oh, no way, I can do that. Great. He was finishing up. He wasn't going to do it anymore. I'm like, hey, I'm happy to do it. You know what I mean? So 10:30 in the mornings, I'd be there, especially in the summers, for like 3 summers in a row. 10:30 in the morning, go into the pool room, clean all the tables, noon till they kicked me out. I was there practicing and playing. And that became where I really like immersed myself. And then they had weekly tournaments. And I was like, oh crap, they had tournaments, and I was like super nervous and doing all
What
that
game
stuff.
were you playing then?
9-ball was probably the
9-ball?
weekly tournament was 9-ball. Yeah, the weekly tournament was 9-ball. I grew up, that was like the main focus because there wasn't really like, there was some 8-ball leagues, there was some APA stuff, and occasionally we'd have an 8-ball tournament. But 9-ball was the primary game that I would kind of, get involved with. It's kind of like picking your first Pokemon, right? Whatever. It's like, I don't know.
I only cared about 9-ball. I remember having Johnny Archer poster on my wall,
Yeah. Oh
breaking
man.
a rack of 9-ball, and that was going to be me when I was little.
Archer was probably the first player that I fixated on watching
Really?
that break. Yeah, that first, because he was so dominant in the 90s, you know what I mean? And he became this perennial American figure, like the elite, him and Earl. And then, as I kind of started going through that, then I started like, I had a good friend of mine, Dave Uwadi, former collegiate national champion. He had a huge AccuStats library, that like thousands of AccuStat DVDs. And I when I was getting, starting to get better and dig into the nuts and bolts of pool, I started like watching a lot of old matches. And then you start seeing about Efren and Buddy and Earl and Varner and Rempe and Siegel and all these amazing names, that kind of like set us up for where we are right now in pool.
While we're on that,
Yeah.
who's your favorite player?
My favorite player ever, all time,
Yeah.
Efren.
Efren. Okay,
Yeah.
now you have to say why.
Yeah, Efren, I think is an amazing player because he has such a skilled and multifaceted approach to the game. He, in the Philippines, he grew up in like really, he was a 15-ball rotation player. That's the big game they played there. And then he stopped playing pool for a while and just played carom, 3-cushion and ball climb and straight rail and all these kind of like inner disciplines that are completely separate from what we do in pool and what everybody else does in pool. And he developed this super broad palette of skills that really we haven't seen developed or modeled yet at the highest level on pool players. And for the life of me, I don't understand why. Because he showed what true mastery of the broader area of the game can look like and how it can just make you completely unique and dominant. And then when he came back into pool, it was just like a joke, He I remember Bustamante tells this story about Efren coming into a city, and at that point nobody could beat Bustamante playing 15-ball rotation. And Efren offered him a big spot playing 15-ball rotation. He's like, yeah, sure. And just Efren just ran him like over, just robbed him, broke him around, broke him around, broke him around. It's completely tortured. I mean, he's like, you're the best player I've ever seen in my life. And to this day, Bustamante says, who's, you know, and they ask him, who's the greatest player you ever watched, they ever saw. And he says, Efren.
Now, I didn't ask for the greatest player. I asked for your favorite, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But he's my favorite as well. Chris,
Yeah.
who's your favorite pool player, Chris?
Probably Alex Pagline.
Oh yeah, that one's good too.
Just him being just from the character he is.
Yeah.
He's just fun to watch.
He is fun to watch. He's very like joyful, you know. And I love seeing Alex talk now because he's very transparent about his journey and the challenges he faces at his level, having been a world champion, having been at the top of the game, and now trying to, like, you know, reassert himself and still win matches at the highest level. He's really fun.
So the first time I met Alex was like I think it was 1998. He'd come to Tulsa to play James Walden, and back then James Walden was on the top of his game. I don't know if you ever heard of James Walden.
Mm-hmm.
And they were going to play one pocket. No, they're playing 9-ball, a headset. They played 12 headsets for $5,000 each. Well, before that started, Alex was over playing Joey Gray, and Alex was playing behind his back, and Joey's like 12 or 13 years old, and then it just the way he interacted with everybody. I mean, he's just a character. I don't know. He's fun to be around, but he's fun to watch play pool too.
Yeah. I do have a favorite 9-ball player ever, and I really like Buddy Hall. You know, still,
why?
Watching Buddy play is kind of like, it's like enchanting. You know what I mean? Just his control of the cue ball. I have a friend of mine who used to work at AccuStats, and they did like a long study of like the best cue ball control ever. Least amount of cue ball errors at high level play. They took like 20 years worth of AccuStats, and Buddy's was the highest ranked, and then Nick Barner was second, and then
oh yeah, that's got to be both the top two, right?
Yeah. So Buddy was just, I mean, pretty amazing, you know what I mean? And he systemized his cue ball stuff. He had his own kind of approach to how to manage like cue ball spin and stuff, and just shot selection was super great. Always looked super calm under pressure, and his stroke was just so smooth and so good. And you know, when Efren came to the US, Buddy was the only guy to get him really for the dough, you know, that big match they played at Reds in Texas. And yeah, Buddy was just, I think, just the best, you know, when it came to managing the cue ball. I think I put a lot of importance, I think, on the cue ball and watching somebody who had total control of it, you know, at the highest level.
You do have very, very good cue ball control. That's probably your I haven't seen all the parts of your game, but you have good cue ball control.
Yeah, you got to work.
Maybe great cue ball control, but not Buddy Hall. But like, you know, you have really good cue ball control.
Yeah, I've been working a lot on the like cue ball interactions with the balls and the rails and multi-rail stuff. A lot of carom influence right now in my game, and I'm trying to kind of like go that route where I'm exploring parts of the game that a lot of nobody really is on the pool side. I see the top players today are all kind of like, they went down the like Earl Strickland route, right? Earl's very offensive and you know, I feel like they've gone the route of maximizing for a certain mold, right? And I think that today's game is very much about like technique. So it's very much about cue delivery, accuracy with your stroke, being able to break the balls well, jump well, you know.
And how about your upcoming events with these 4-inch or very, you know, smaller pockets?
Yeah, I mean, the pocket size stuff, I enjoy, you know, smaller pockets. It brings more safety play into the game. So I think that benefits me a lot, especially because I've been working a lot on kicking and safety aspect of the game. And so if the game's going to get more that way, you know what I mean? I like my end of it against a lot of people. I find myself nowadays playing certain shots at least once or twice in a tournament. I'm like, nobody else in the building would play this particular shot, you know, and I like that a lot. because I'm playing the game a little bit differently. So as my game continues to round out and I get more comfortable with certain things that I'm working on, then I think that's just gonna,
Well, it goes
uh,
back to what you said about effort,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah,
About mastering those parts of the game, and
yeah,
then
yeah. You just have a broader. You just see certain shots that are just they're just available to you. You know, a lot of people saw him play one pocket and they were like, "This is way the wrong shot," and it's way the wrong shot for everybody else because they don't play these two rails to a ball, tiki behind the stack shots in pool. They're linear. They shoot straight. They bank straight. They cut the ball in. You know what I mean? They play a
yeah.
combo. He's he's doing other things that are fit in his repertoire. That's super standard in carom. They're just super basic, like going two, like making the ball in the corner and coming two rails to the middle. Like that's the effect. That's the equivalent of him going two rails to a ball, pushing it on his side and coming down behind the stack. Like they're just like, oh my gosh, you know,
All
these are
right. So what? You got to tell me your favorite games right now. I know it's probably changed over time. You told me you started with
yeah,
nine ball. Favorite games right now.
yeah. In rotation world, I guess. I mean, everybody's playing like the matchroom format 9 ball, right? But I think 10 ball is probably still my favorite rotation game. Um, it's just more play. A couple years ago, I really got into straight pool. In at Strokers, I was living in Tampa, and they had an in-house straight pool league, and that was really the first time I had an environment where there was like a incentive to want to play straight pool,
How long
right?
ago was this?
This was like 2.5 years ago or so.
Okay.
And Rolando's a house guy. He came from New York. He's from Amsterdam Billiards, and so you know, New York has the Northeast is like the home of straight pool, and it became just part of their culture. Like you go to New York today, there's straight pool leagues, and you know, all through the Northeast, they're still playing that game. And as I reflect now on like the style of play, like the meta, right, of today's game, I feel like we have lost some of the more tactically minded decision making at a really high level that the straight pool era gave us. Namely, I think about guys like Siegel and Varner, who were in this era where pool in the U.S. used to be all straight pool, right? That was the
That
game.
was pool.
That was pool. That was the world championship standard, and you had guys that maximized in that mold how to play pool. So the equipment was not as good, and you had to be perfect in your decision making and your shot selection to have a chance to win in a tournament that had Joe Balsis, Irving Crane, you know, Luther Lassiter, uh, you know, all the top straight pool players, you know, eventually Mike Siegel and Varner. All you're talking about, you know, Peter Margot, like all the greats that came out of that era,
Mhm.
they all had perfect shot selection, perfect pattern play. They knew how to finish and close the end patterns correctly, go through the balls correctly. All these things that were super hypercritical in the decision making process made them elite in that world. Then you transitioned where straight pool was transitioning into 9 ball, and so you had this overlap. And that's where you slot in guys like Varner and Siegel, who Siegel, when he got to the end of a tournament, you're just never beating him, right? He
That's
gets
what
to
I
the
heard.
you're not beating him. He's gonna make the perfect out. He knows he's gonna like dog proof the out. The out is gonna be tactically right. He's gonna play the right safety. He's gonna put immense pressure on you. Efren, who's my favorite player ever, is on record as saying that Mike Siegel was his toughest opponent, you know? And if I think Efren's the GOAT, right? Which I think he is, and he's saying that Mike Siegel was the toughest guy for him to beat, then I'm going to give some credit to that, right? So Mike also had a powerful break and could, you know, come with tough shots and all this other stuff, but his pattern play and his tactical side of the game was super complete. Then when you transition into like the Earl era, Earl, Archer, Rodney Morris, we just shift into now a new mold that's all strictly 9 ball, right?
Yeah.
9 was hyper aggressive, shot making, banking, breaking, jumping. You know, Earl brought the jump to the game. And so he innovated in that sense. But now we're like 2 generations removed from that, or a generation removed from that. And now everybody's hyper focused on maximizing for the 9-ball mode, which is the break, the stroke, the jumping, the athletic parts of the game. And I feel like there's a lot of the nuance in some of the decision-making process that's been lost as the equipment has gotten a little easier. The balls are higher quality, the cloth is better quality. It's easier to run out. So now they're maximizing in this one area that's super offensive. And I feel like we lose the opportunity to really see at a deeper level what the game could be. And I think there's a lot of room for growth on in pool and in the skill level and the quality of play. There's room for growth, even with as good as the guys are today offensively with the break and all these things that they're doing at such a high level. They've polished this side of the game so well that it's hard to argue with like somebody like Federer can, you know, like his stroke delivery is beautiful. He looks like, you know, like the way
He's a machine.
yeah, it's like the way you would want to learn, right?
Yeah, what do y'all think about when you see Federer play? I mean, is it like watching Tiger Woods when golfers used to watch Tiger?
I don't know. I think
I mean,
it's
do you feel like
interesting.
you're ever going to beat him? Is that, you know what I mean? As a pro pool player, which you
Yeah,
definitely are, is it kind of like, man, he is on a whole nother level?
I think at the top, right? You have all these guys that do so much so well, so much of the same things well, right? That if you try to beat them at their own game, right? Then it's going to take you a long time to catch up to a level of proficiency to like you don't want to stand in the middle of the ring with Tyson and outbox him, right? You don't want to outpunch him.
Right. Yeah,
He's
I
going
get
to clobber you.
exactly what you're saying.
You know, you gotta fight a fight that stylistically plays to their weaknesses, and you have to have complementary strengths to have an advantage in this fight. So if you think you're going to have a cleaner stroke than Federer and beat him that way, good luck. You know, if you think you're going to have a better, you know, break than him, no. You know, you think you're going to jump better than him, no. What you can do is get to a level of proficiency where that advantage isn't so significant.
Kind of like
And
Alex as an
yes, you can
example.
defend yourself. Yeah. And Alex,
He doesn't do any of those three things as good as Federer, but he
but
might
he's smarter.
he
He's
might
smart.
okay.
He's more tactically experienced and makes smarter decisions because of especially like in the 9-ball format, you've seen Alex beat Filler now, the last 2 or 3 times they played in a big matchroom setting, right? Because
Mhm.
he's turning the game into a style, assuming he has control, assuming, you know, Filler doesn't run the set out, which he's totally capable of doing, right? If the
Right.
match goes that way, but it's unlikely that it goes that way. So now, you know, if you're able to get in and get control, it's really just about that. How do you keep control and how do you leverage that control over a race to 9, you know, or race to 11 or whatever it is? You
Mhm.
know, everybody overvalues, I think, the break and they overvalue this offensive move. And they don't necessarily see the weaknesses that a lot of the players are putting forward on the tactical side because you don't have an Efren who's exploiting those weaknesses. You don't have somebody who's able to punish everybody severely with that side of the game.
Okay, I don't want to interrupt you, but I just want to I had a little breakthrough here. We had like 30 seconds left on the clock before Zoom kicked us off,
You know?
and I just paid the $14.99. So
Fantastic.
we can go as long as we want now. But we
Yeah.
were really close there. It probably looked like I was zoning out, but I got it in
No,
there.
you're good. You're good.
So um I kind of see this mindset you're in, and it seems like mastery. It seems like the opportunity in pool for you or for anyone is to keep control of the table. Raymond, have you ever heard of pool referred to as a turnover game?
Uh, I not directly no, but I can kind of see the corollary for sure.
Yeah, it'd
You
be
know,
like how many times did you turn over the table
right,
to your opponent?
right.
But I
And
like what you're saying about those Buddy Hall stats.
yeah, I mean, there's something to be said about somebody who's going to make less errors than you.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you beat that guy?
How about let's talk about you. Okay, that's what this interview should be about, right?
Sure.
But
Yeah, I'm a little like, I like the history side of the game too. So I
yeah, okay, I right.
so do I.
No more deflecting to other players. We're going to talk about you. This is
Sure,
this is about Raymond Linares.
sure.
So you can pick your question. We can talk about how you practice, or we can talk about why you love straight pool so much.
Um, I think the why I practice is good because um I think whether it's straight pull or one pocket or nine ball, it's really about building your proficiency and building your skills. And so I think I'm in a phase in my life where, for career and work and all that stuff, I had to take a little bit of time away from the game. And I saw opportunities go to other people that if I would have been available at that time, probably would have gone to somebody like me based on the way my game was trending. And so now I'm kind of like have life more in order, and I'm at a place where I, in a way was relearning how to compete at a high level. And you go through a lot of those learning pains and frustrations and all those things. And I think when you get to that phase where you're really focused on mastery, it is about being close to the process of improvement as you can be and as honest as you can be, and about not getting caught up in any of the distractions that come with living in a social age, social media, and a world of distraction that is completely external, that has nothing to do with um with time spent on the table. And
Yeah,
so
so
now,
there's infinite distractions, you mean? Like,
yeah, we're in the most distractible era ever in human history, I'd imagine. And I love this phrase. It's like, you got to make the main thing the main thing. And a lot of times people get caught up making several things the main thing, and they never make any progress. And once you get to a point where you have enough pain and frustration built up around making the wrong things the main
the
thing,
main thing.
then you say, okay, I'm going to refocus my spare time, whatever that allotment is, and focus it on doing something that means a lot to me. So for me, it's this pursuit of, improvement and growth, and getting to a point where I'm developing my game in the areas that I think need to be developed, so that, you know, fortune favors the prepared mind. You know what I mean? That really what it is. That's what it is. You have to be in a state that's ready to capitalize on the opportunities that come to you. And if you don't, that's a missed opportunity and you weren't ready.
Yeah.
So, like in the past, when I was younger, when I was playing all the time, like if somebody came into the pool room and I happened to play them, but I was out of stroke because I'd taken 2 weeks off, and I broke even with them, and I felt like I could have won. I've had moments like that happen to me, and that made me very, very mad. Like that would like just really piss me off. I get really upset. And so then I'd practice, and then we play again, and then I'd win, and I'm like, yeah, okay, back to normal. So I've had those moments happen in life. I had a chance to three-peat that would have been a four-peat collegiate nationals, and that's never been done before. And I was unprepared the one.
Hold on. You can't just, I know you're humble, but we can't just like brush over that. I'm
Yeah,
walking
yeah.
upstairs. Chris, if you can hear me, can you hear me?
Yeah.
The phone died, so all the questions are on the phone, but I know you have them. In fact, Raymond, you probably have some of them.
Yeah.
So we can't just skip over the yeah, I just happened to dominate college in America pool for a minute. No, let's talk about that.
Okay.
Let's go into that.
So I had a friend of mine who had competed in collegiate nationals, and I'd heard about it. When I went to college, that became like a thing that I wanted to apply myself to and do. So I remember I qualified for nationals for the first time in 2010. And I went to the collegiate nationals, and I trained my butt off to go over there and play. I was in Ann Arbor, Michigan at the old student union. Betsy Sonholm was a tournament director, and I think Eleanor Collado was also there. She was running the tournament as well. And yeah, I went to that tournament. I lost my first match, double hill. Had some friends come from northern Michigan to come watch me play, and I was kind of whatever. I lost a really good player, Mitch Trainum, I think, from Virginia Tech. Uh, great player. And I texted my buddy, Dave, who had gone to collegiate nationals. He had snapped it off in '92. I think it was last year they had it as 8 ball. So this year it's been 9 ball. It was 9 ball since. And so he told me, it's like it's meant to be, because when I won my collegiate nationals, I lost my first match too. And I was like, oh my gosh, no way. And so I went to the one loss side and I won like 10 matches in a row, and I double dipped the guy in the finals, true double elimination. And I snapped it off. And it was just such an incredible feeling, like to work so hard for something and then like achieve it. It was pretty wild.
And you're a freshman, sophomore.
Freshman, yeah. So that was my
You're a
first.
freshman in college.
Yeah,
What
first
school?
time doing that. Miami-Dade College.
Miami-Dade College.
Yeah, Miami-Dade. And and yeah, that was wild. Miami-Dade didn't have a student pool organization or anything. You just had to qualify, you had to go to regionals, and to be valid, to be eligible to compete in regionals, you just needed to have meet the GPA requirements and have it signed by your bursar's office and a teacher. That's it. So submit my application, go to regionals, won regionals, went to nationals, snapped off nationals, and then second year I went to
Wait a
regionals.
minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. So you're the champion.
Yeah.
You go back.
Oh, that year I also won the U.S. Amateur Championships as
I
well.
was waiting for something. Yeah, okay.
So 2010, I snapped off both of those tournaments.
Has anyone ever done that? Do you
No.
know? You're the only
No.
one to ever do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So that paid your way into U.S. Open, right?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so when the U.S. Amateurs paid my entry fee to the 2011 U.S. Open, and I got to play the U.S. Open for the first time then, which is awesome. I won my first match at the U.S. Open, which is also
Against
pretty.
who?
Johnny Demet, Johnny
John
Rocket.
DeMet. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I beat him
Solid left-handed player.
11-6. And I remember winning that match, and Donnie Mills comes up to me and goes, "You win your match?" And I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "Congratulations, sir. You're a pool player." And I'm like, great, I'm in. So
I met Johnny Rocket, John DeMet at Strokers in Palm Harbor.
yeah, he used to live here in Florida. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you go to the US Open and play
Yeah.
a guy from the same area.
He is from the west. He was on the West Coast. He was more like Tampa
Oh.
Spring. I was in Miami still. So, but yeah, still, we see him. On the Seminole Tour. Is where I really cut my teeth, and I would see him there all the time.
So you're your first US Open, you just snapped off back to those
Asian
two people.
Nationals and U.S. Amateurs. I made the cover of Inside Pool that year. Jasmine
Ooh.
made the cover, and then me and Darren Appleton were on the cover. He was like professional player of the year, now it's amateur player of the year that year. So that was super nice.
How'd that feel?
That was kind of surreal. It's kind of weird. I remember the first time I saw my name on AZ Billiards when I won the collegiate nationals. It was kind of a cool deal. You know what I mean? You get the recognition and stuff, and people start to recognize who your name is. I got a sponsorship from OB out of that as well. OB was my longtime Q sponsor. And, so that was kind of just awesome. A great relationship. Royce helped me out a bunch. And then Shane Sino was really instrumental in kind of getting me the stuff I needed just to be able to compete and play well and stuff. And so the following year I went back to collegiate nationals in Virginia Tech, and I snapped that off and beat a really good
that's
player.
all.
Yeah. I beat
back to back.
I beat a really good player in Chris Futrell. It was the only year he went to nationals. He's a Virginia guy. And it just kind of felt like he was like, I'm gonna steal in this little collegiate tournament type of thing. Great, really great player. And he beat me the first set of the finals 8-5, and then I came back and beat him the second set 8-5. And I was like, it was hostile territory as well, because he was like, he's from Virginia and it was at Virginia Tech. So he had us friends and family. Everybody's rooting for him. There's me, like my girlfriend at the time, and like one Asian guy that was like clapping for me when I won.
And there's a target on you.
Oh yeah,
because you're the defending champion.
Right. Yeah. Nobody wanted me to win for sure. And so I snapped that off.
So who was there to see you win that? Who else?
Literally two other people. Everybody else literally rooting for Chris, which I mean, I can understand. It was a similar situation in Michigan the first year, because the kid that I beat in the finals was had his whole family there. He thought he was going to snap it off, and yeah, it became whatever, so I was kind of used to it at that point. And I just, really bared down. I actually had somebody try and shark me on my winning 9-ball across the room. I'm shooting in a corner pocket facing the room. So we're like our table is up against the back corner as a diamond table. And I get down to shoot the ball going this way, and there's somebody in my line of sight, and I see them go like this and like drop their arm. And I did like the Tiger Woods, you know how he like just lets the club go almost like at the backswing. And I'm like, what the crap? And I get up and I make like dead eye contact with them. You know what I mean? Like I look them down, I'm like just to acknowledge, like I know what you did. I go back to the table, powder my hand, like powder the shaft. I get down and I just fire the 9-ball in, boom, pound it in. I go, yes, baby, one time, let's go. Yeah, like again, like barely golf claps. You know what I mean? It was rough. For me, it was a big deal because I didn't let him get me. You know what I mean? That was
Yeah.
the validation from my own toughness or whatever to kind of come through that.
So
Uh,
that's a reflection of your mental game. I'm gonna ask a mental game question. Remember, I don't have my notes here. My phone died, but
you're
I want to stick with the college, and then
sure.
let's get past college. Tell me what happened next.
So I won those first 2 years. The third year, school became really intense. So it was the kind of business head of it was the third year of my bachelor's program in film production, which is where I got my major in. And it just got really, really busy. And I remember trying to practice the last few weeks to get ready for nationals. And I felt like if I can get a good solid a few weeks in, I'll probably be okay. And I remember the week of the tournament, I'm going to practice at one pool room, and I'm practicing hitting balls, and one of my ferrules cracks on me. My main playing shot, ferrule cracks. So it's like crap, but I have a backup shaft, no problem, right? So I'm hitting balls for another couple of days. The backup shaft, getting that one broken in 2 days before the tournament, and that ferrule cracked on me. So both my ferrules cracked on me. And I was so heated. And I message OB, like
Was it the OB Pro shaft?
yeah, the Classic Pro Plus or whatever it was,
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, emergency 911. They airmail a shaft uh, to Indiana for me at this point because there's nothing really that can be done for me. So brand new unsealed shaft. I hated the way their shafts came from factory. They always, for me, I'd always
Everest tip, I think.
yeah, they came with the Everest tip, which was fine for a while, but then after a while, it was not fine. Something changed with the Everest. I'm not sure what exactly happened, but they started becoming really hard right away. And the shaft was like rough and unseasoned, and I'm disconnected from it. It's not broken in. I get
Don't
there,
trust it.
new cloth, everything is like, you know what I mean? I feel a little underprepared, like all this crap. Mark Wilson goes, first year he's going scouting for all this stuff, and I play in front of Mark, and I end up getting like fifth, sixth, or seventh, eighth, something like that. I was so hot. I was so heartbroken too, because that would have been the three-peat year, and then set me up for number 4. And oh my God, I was so heartbroken that happened. And I just, kind of swallowed it, took my medicine and went home. Next year, I spent 2 months practicing for collegiate nationals, 2013, which is the final year. It was at Arizona State University, and I was just not going to be denied. And I put in a ton of work, and really, really got in really great stroke. And I went to Arizona State University. What I used to do for tournaments was I train really hard up to a tournament, get there 2 days early, put one big session in before the start of the tournament. And the day before the tournament, I would just do something else, something not pool related. I wouldn't hit balls at all. And so I went to Arizona State University, went to the student union, put a good session in, like a 4 or 5 hour session in, got used to the tables and stuff. And then the next day I just went around Arizona. I did archery there. There's a Arizona archery club. It's really cool. So I got to do a lot of the things you would do in pool, pre-shot routine, breathing, stance, all that kind of stuff. And I just taught myself how to do archery. They gave me a little compound bow and little range and stuff. And because of my eye dominance, I had to shoot left-handed. So that was interesting too. I'm using a different part of my brain, you know what I mean, to do that and kind of just be a student, right? You're just learning. It's kind of fun. And had dinner, watched a movie, relaxed, and then went and just crushed everybody the whole tournament. I beat everybody 8-2, 8-1, or 8-0 the first 5 rounds. I think the hot seat match I won 8-1 or 8-0, something like that. And then we were playing with the magic rack the whole tournament. I was just super consistent with the magic rack. There was just like, they were like, at this point, all the other competitors were scheming against me to set me up to lose in the finals because they didn't want me to win a third one. And so there was like a little small community of the 3 guys I've beaten and then the guy that's in the finals with me. And they're like, and I'm like, okay, so I guess we'll play with the magic rack. Like, we don't want to play with the magic rack. We want to play with the magic rack. And I'm like, well, that's not cool. So I'm like, I'm trying to play this scenario out of my head, right? Because I can rack the balls great and I'm not going to cheat anybody. So now I know he's going to have a magic rack basically every rack, and I'm likely not, because if he's willing to not have a neutral racker and the magic rack is as neutral as it gets, then he may be willing to slug me a couple times, and
Oh,
slug
this
me.
was that rack. This we're not talking to rack your own times. This is back 2012.
This is how I set this is how I set this whole situation up. Okay. So I'm in this scenario and I'm starting to play it out. I know it's true double elimination. I'm on the winner side, undefeated. He's got to beat me twice. So I'm like, if I yield on the rack for each other thing, then I have grounds to argue the other way. So I'm like, let's see how it goes. We play rack for each other. I get slugged every rack, pretty much every rack. It's brutal. I lose the first set 8-4 or 5, I believe, and he's making balls in the break because I know how to rack the balls, and we're using the little crappy little flimsy like Brunswick thin rack that the flat base and a little thin, you know what I mean? So it's not easy. So I'm not even saying that he was intentionally trying to, but I know that I know what to accept and what not to accept. So I'm not, and I'm trying to be as honorable as I can. So he gets all the breaks opening, perfect for him, and I'm dealing with mud and whatever. Lose first set, go to the bathroom, wash my hands, come back, and I'm like, okay, so now we're gonna play Magic Rack, right? And I already knew what I was gonna do. I suggest Magic Rack. No, we can't play Magic Rack. Can't play Magic. I'm like, come on, you had it your way. You rack for me, right? Now let's do it the fair way. Now give me what I want. I want the Magic Rack. Give me the Magic Rack. He says, no. And I'm like, all right, fine. Look, let's just play rack for your own, like rack your own. Like, we'll just settle with that. He's like, okay, fine. See you later. 8-2. When
You went 8-2.
Close, yeah. I just like completely ran over him in the final set, and I was giving myself good racks and doing what I did the whole tournament. And I knew I got him right when he agreed to say rack your own. I'm like, you're done. And so I beat him 8-2, and I played a great set in the final and won my 3rd collegiate nationals. And that was really satisfying because of how unsatisfying and heartbreaking the year before was to come back and kind of vindicate myself and my name and join. Now I'm tied for the most collegiate nationals all time. There's 2 other guys with 3. Lars Vardaman had 3, and then this other guy in the 70s. I always forget his name. But
Nick Varner's not one of them.
2. He had 2.
2.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's go back to. All right, you got a choice here.
Yeah.
You can talk about how you practice. You can talk about mindset.
I'd love to talk about both, but I can't really get into as much detail about what I practice.
Oh.
So I have a coach. I have a sense. I call him Sensei. Whenever you hear him referred to on my Facebook, occasionally I'll talk about Sensei.
Well, can we talk? Can we plug him? Who is it?
Sensei. That's who he is.
Okay. So
Sensei.
it's anonymous.
Yeah, he's not really super known in the pool community. He has a billiards background.
So I can't ask you how you practice. I can ask you, you're just not going to tell me.
No, I can talk in generalities, but for me to really get into the nuts and bolts, I have to sit down and talk with you for like a couple hours on okay. So Sensei has this unpublished system, right, that I've been working with for, like, I've known Sensei, my coach, since even the 2010 days, right, like the ACY days. And so he had shown me some initial tools and things that I could use in rotation game scenarios and different things that were very helpful and helped me win those tournaments against that competition. And so, but the system itself is math based. So a lot of numbers, a lot of like quantifying things that everybody else ascribes to kind of like vagary and voodoo, right? They're like, oh, put a little bit of this, or, use a little. I'm like, all that stuff is good because there's no model that gives you a language to be able to quantify these things, right?
And
So
running the numbers on it on it all, I guess.
It
all of
sounds
it,
like
all
sounds
of
like
it.
some Steve Urkel pool.
Yeah, basically. Well, it's more like well, I can't even use that analogy because anyhow, so it's really like being able to take and reinforce and confirm what your intuitions are because you have numbers to back those up. And then there's going to be areas in your game where there's counterintuitive things happening between the balls, interacting and spin and different things happening that are at a deep level that are counterintuitive. And so your intuitions will lead you astray in certain senses, right? And so a lot of people kind of rely on pool mysticism, you know what I mean? And they try and like shortcut some things that are actually very dense and hard to understand. But because they don't have a model to reference, they use like, well, it's kind of like the diamond system, but then you got to do this. And this scenario, you got to do this. And it's like, they don't have a proper way to map table conditions, right? So everybody plays with things like, even when you talk about spin, right? Just spin. People say like, oh, you got to use, one tip of spin and this relative to what? What does that one tip of spin mean to you? What does it mean to you on a sticky, dirty pool table? What does it mean to you in perfect TV table, super slidey, glossy conditions? Nobody really has a methodology for how to adapt those things and make them reliable.
So you're
So
scientific for sure.
very analytical
And
at this point.
I want to talk about because I know you have if I could like if you had a baseball card but for a pool player,
Yeah.
or if you were a video game character and it listed like, all of your attributes and like the levels of which ones are highest. Okay, I would say that you're one of the most disciplined pool players that I've ever met ever. So can you give us like some of, tell us a little bit like how can we become more disciplined as pool players on the table?
I really appreciate that. Sometimes I don't feel as disciplined as but I also have very high standards and I put a lot of pressure on myself. So that's another thing. And it's easy to come down on yourself when you're not operating at your maximum like level of focus. And I know what that looks like. So I know when I'm not tapped into that. So that's a struggle for me sometimes. But I think as far as discipline goes, and like for me, it's just a numbers game. It's like, we have people who, we're chasing, right? We're chasing the top pro players of the game to win in match play, to win big events and big tournaments, right? They have the luxury of unlimited time.
Unlimited time.
Yeah, they're just playing all the time. This is their life, right? Whether they choose to apply that towards practice or not, that's up to them. But they have the luxury of it, right? They have this resource. And a lot of the times they have sponsors, they have support, they're established, they've made a name for themselves. God bless them. That's amazing. And they get to go and compete, some of them even without even having to worry about money, right? Because they're
Talking about the elite.
Yeah, the elite guys, you know what I mean? Or the guys that are in countries that they get federal support, all this kind of stuff. Like, that's awesome for them. That's luxury, right? Everybody has a puzzle to solve if they want to get to a master level of anything. For me, I'm not in a position yet where I've earned enough money or clout or recognition in pool to where I can just be in that situation where I'm getting supported to the point where I can just focus on pool.
No free rolls for Ray?
No free rolls for us. For the American players, mostly we don't have those free rolls, right? We have a lot of very skilled, highly skilled players who are trying to manage life as well and pay for kids and a home and provide and do all the things we're called to do as men and as leaders in our homes and our families. But also there's this desire to achieve this level that we have. So for me, it's like, okay, if I can't have unlimited time, if I can't have 8-10 hours a day of practicing and hitting a million balls every day, then how can I make the time at the table that I do have as effective, as targeted, as precise as possible? So for me, I become very analytical about my approach. So even today, I was practicing my break. I have this drill where I have a concept called the critical shot, right? Every tournament that you go to will have a format will lead itself to having a critical shot. So if you play in the Predator Pro Billiard Series, you got to have the spot shots down, right? That's your critical shot.
Got it,
right?
right?
That's got to be in the pocket. Like there's no thinking about it, right? It's got to be so ingrained that you're able to call on that because you're going to go to shootouts a lot. So that's a shot. If you're playing the Matchroom 9-ball stuff, which is where my focus is right now, that you have to have the break down. Like you can't be outbroken by the guys who are already hitting more balls than you.
You're
So
just
what I
dead if you don't have the break
Yeah.
literally mastered.
Yeah, you're dead. So you have to break at least good enough to defend yourself to have the opportunities to then go and win racks and sets against these guys. So what I do when I am getting ready and practicing for the break is that I'll have the box, right? And I'll have the template rack, I'll polish the balls, and I'll go to a little notebook and I'll create these tables, right? So I'll have 25 innings where I break from the left side of the box. And then for that 25 breaks, I'll have balls in the break, or whether or not I made the 9 on the snap, and whether or not I scratched. So I have 3 columns, right? And I'll break 25 from the left, 25 from the right, 25 from the left, 25 from the right. So 100 breaks. Takes about 2 hours for me. And all I do is chalk up, set up my break, go through my pre-shot routine, get down, execute the break as best as I can for that one shot. Keep track of everything. And then at the end of that inning of 25, I'll total, oh, I made X amount of balls. So now I have a balls per break average for this block of 25. I have how many times I broke and scratched. I have how many times I made a 9 on the break. And I can create statistics of expectation based on 25 or 100 breaks.
That is
So
super analytical.
It's intelligent. This is like the level we have to be at if we're gonna like break through and deal with these guys, right? These juggernauts, these offenses.
Does it feel better when you write down your results and then the next day and you get better results and it's there's proof in it, you know?
Exactly. And you can it's not about what you feel at that point. Because what you feel, you'd be like, I don't know if I was like, well, you never broke and scratched in 50 breaks and you made the 9 on the snap once. If you never break and scratch, you never give up ball in hand on the break, that's already winning. You know what I mean? That's awesome. So and now not only that, you're averaging 1.3 balls per break. You're a threat to win any tournament averaging that much.
Would you say, Raymond, that going into your next Matchroom event, which we're all going to be watching you, okay? Sure. Would you say that going into that event, you're going to know your numbers?
Well, I know them now. Yeah, I know them now. I know when the balls are clean, I'm averaging 1.45 balls per break, which is a super high clip. When the balls get dirty, I get down to about 1.2 balls per break. I know over 100 breaks, I might scratch less than 6 times, and I might make the 9 on the break 3 or 4 times. Okay. So that's just averages over this kind of stuff. I know at the high end, for any 25 rack period, my high end is 43 balls in 25, which if I do the math real quick, let me just see what 43 divided by 25 is. 1.72 balls per break, nearly 2 balls per break. That is a super.
Are you hitting these balls? What's hitting these balls?
I haven't done the clock so much because for me, it's less about ball speed. It's more about, there's an iterative process that goes through the break where it's really about feel and translating those results. Because I can tell you how I hit the ball, exactly where I hit it, and I know exactly where I'm hitting the one ball, where I'm targeting, and I know where I want the cue ball to go. But if I tell you that and it doesn't translate for you through your stroke, that's something that you develop through the iteration that's unique to your body composition and just your makeup. Like, you know, but I'm hitting them pretty good. I think when I'm hitting them flush, I'm getting them 3 rails across. So left rail, right rail, left rail, and back out to the middle. That's when you're hitting them really good and kind of tagging it and getting after it. So, I mean, I've dominated some of the top, you know, players in the country in tournaments. Like last year, I beat Evan Lunda 9-1 at the Texas Open. And I had him 8-0, and I didn't complete the 3-point rule. It's the only game he won. he got straight in on the one after my break. I would have ran out to beat him 9-0, but I didn't. Then I beat Shane Wolford in Boston earlier in the year 9-2, and he didn't make a ball until I was up 7-0. I broke and scratched in the break, up 7-0. You know, I beat Jose Alberto
Putting on
Barajas.
like little clinics there. You're just taking over the table.
Well, Skyler said that exact word. He was watching me because he was playing the match over, and he's like, man, you put on a clinic. Like, how do you break that way? He asked me to help him with it. I'm like, didn't you just come
But
back
Skylar's asking you how to break,
like,
Ray. You
didn't you
are doing something right. I'll tell you.
I had it working, and it helps with the thing is, like, at home I polish the balls, I have a good set of airmeth balls there, and so I'm used to those conditions. You know what I mean? It helps a lot when you have the template rack and you have the good balls. Like, it helps you achieve the higher levels of consistency because you're not dealing with a little bit of the inconsistency that can creep up when you're training in your pool room, right? Maybe the balls aren't the same size and it's tough to get the magic rack, and then it's kind of defeats the whole purpose of trying to even dial this stuff in. You really need to have good equipment to make it right. You know what I mean? Because that's where you're going to be training in. So,
Well, you
but
know
yeah,
what you're about to go play. I'm pretty sure that with the way you think about it, you're trying to just duplicate that.
yeah,
The balls, the table, the timing, that's probably even like sitting down when you miss. I don't know what you're doing, but I'm sure that you're trying to simulate exactly the standards.
yeah. And the analytic approach I really got from Dennis Searing. Dennis was a super methodical player and a really high level player in the Florida tour back in the late 90s. People forget he was a world beater. He if you played him and made one extra mistake, as a champion, he could beat you that set. So he would have a lot of double hill matches like a Miserak or Buddy Hall or those kind of guys playing in the 90s. And he used to teach me this drill. He taught me this drill with the 9-ball ghost, which I kept forever, and I still use it whenever I'm really trying to get ramped up for a tournament, where I'll play at least 25 racks against the 9-ball ghost, or I'll play 50, and I'll use a notebook, and I have pages and pages of notebooks where rack, balls in the break, points, whether I broke and ran, and notes. And so I'll play this long session against the ghost, break ball in hand. Every ball I make is worth a point. And, at the end, I have all these averages that I can tally up. And a long enough session simulates like a day of playing a tournament. It's like you go through, oh, you missed a ball, frustrated. You're still thinking about it the next rack, you lose focus, you miss another ball, whatever. And then you run 7, you know what I mean? That kind of stuff. Like, so I've done that forever and kind of just, that's been my approach. And so when I've played my best, I've gotten, I've beaten Rodney Morris in tournaments. I remember I'd taken a bunch of time off, and Rodney was living in Florida at the time, and I went to a tournament of strokers and played him in an alternate break, race to 9, and beat him 9-7. And I had done that's all I did. I played the ghost 50 game of best of 50. I did 50 racks against the ghost, and I played it 3 times a week prior. And I broke and ran a set out on somebody in a local tournament in Port St. Lucie. This guy, Big Randy, who's
Hold on, let's slow that down.
I broke and ran a 6 on him. Well, I broke and ran 5 and he quit. So
yeah, so you broke and ran a 6 in a tournament.
Yeah, so effectively he conceded the last game, and it was to make the finals, and he took his 3rd place money and walked, so, which is very satisfying because Randy's a bit of a persona. Like, I gotta appreciate a guy who dedicates his life to pool. And then the week after, I'd done the ghost 2 more times, and I played Rodney in that tournament in Tampa, and I beat Rodney.
It's a good win.
So that was like, because at that point I wasn't really competing as much. So it was like, man, you can do this when, and there was life challenges and stuff happening that were frustrating and stuff. And I really didn't get over it till after COVID, because that was another just mind job, that whole situation. And, now I'm in a better place in my life, I think, and I'm able to focus for the first time in a long time without the crazy stress of having a freelance job forever and having to chase down money and all this other stuff. I can just reapply myself to this thing that I know I can do. And so I'm just going to be as efficient as I can in doing it. And for me, it's less about the short term. It's more about, I guess this transitions us into mindset, but it's really about, eliminating the short term, because I think people tend to overestimate what they can do in 1 or 2 years and underestimate what they can do in 10 or 20. And I think my mindset is set on just take the next step forward, regardless of the situations or setbacks. We're all imperfect, and I have my imperfections. I've had really weak mental game actually coming back compared to where I've been in the past. And I've struggled with some of that. I've struggled with comparison. I've struggled with impatience and wanting things now based on what I know.
Harrison, you're the first player to talk about that. You talk
Yeah.
about comparing yourself to other players.
Comparison is the thief of joy, is what the Bible says, right? It says
Wow.
comparison is the thief of joy. And we get so caught up in this idea of like who we are compared to other people. We project our insecurities because we're not achieving at a level that we would like to compared to what other people are doing. We feel it's unfair and it's unjust, when really we're just saying we wish we were doing what they were doing, or we're receiving the acknowledgement that they were receiving. Those kind of things can be very toxic to somebody who cares about the game, because now you're projecting from a place of lack. And when you're in that place of lack, you manifest more of that. And you are complicit in undermining your progress. So I think as much as we want something, if we want something out of place and it from a place of insecurity, we'll never achieve it. We have to understand that there's enough to go around. There's no rush. Everything's gonna happen in due time. Your job is to be the best that you can and improve your game the best you can, so that when your opportunity comes, you're able to walk through that door and take hold of it. That's the warrior's path, really. You have to be ready when the time is ready, when the time presents itself. So I think that's kind of like the place I'm learning to walk in. As I kind of get more comfortable with that, I'll allow myself to have more of those sets where I beat a Rodney, or I beat a Wolford, or I beat a, like last year I beat a Roland Garcia in a Predator Pro-Am event, or Pro Billiard Series event. I beat Ko Pin Han at the International Open. I had a match with Alex Kazakis at the International Open last year, where he effectively had to resort to less than gentlemanly means to try and beat me. And he got there, he beat me, he pulled a move on me and it got me, and fair play to him. You know what I mean? Congratulations. I always say, like, whenever that happens, I've had this happen a couple times where a pro will do something totally shisty. I'm like, man,
moves.
I'm like, if you have to resort to doing this, then you should go practice or get a job, because if I'm doing this on part-time hours and you're already like, showing your, where you're at, you've handed me the keys to the kingdom. Next time I see you, you're toast. I'm like, lost respect for you. You're just a glorified ball banger at this point. You know what I mean? I really appreciate the players who are total gentlemen.
Name one.
Alex is one. The Cole brothers are, I've seen them lose with such class and dignity, and you never see them throw their cue or bang or fuss or anything like that. They are complete gentlemen. I think Federer is a super class act. The kid, is humble in defeat and in victory. Never see him, get belligerent or crazy. You know what I mean? And those are the kind of players that I think are worthy of being called role models.
Well, you're not as popular or as well known as some of those players you mentioned, but you're seen like that. That's the way that you're seen, and it's it's very, very clear. Everyone that you meet, you treat with respect, and then even when you're in a tough spot and could be sour with people, you still have class and I guess restraint.
I learned that I always tell this story. When I was growing up, John DeToro was really like I call him my grandpa, right? Grandpa Johnny taught me a lot about what it means to play the game like a professional. And I did like a little coursework with him, 6-7 lessons, and he taught me a foundational kind of like knowledge base of how to compete and play. But we used to do this thing called mum pool. We would play these races to 5 for $20, right? Cheap sets, 10 ball race to 5 for 20. But we used to play mum pool, which means if you made a sound or grunted or this or bang your cue or anything like that was out of character, it would cost you a $5 penalty. And I never gave him a $5 penalty. I never paid up on that, because I was like, I'm not going to yield to that. He would be torturing me, right? And I would be squirming inside, dying, like completely dismantling me. I'm just pulling my hair out inside, but on the outside, stoic demeanor, just accepting what's there and then trying to play, as best I could. And eventually I was able to subdue those negative emotions, handle that anger, handle what it felt like to get it really put on you, and then come out and play my best. Right. So at this point, it's become a muscle where I'm not really like that stuff doesn't phase me ever, for the most part.
Anymore.
Anymore, right? But it's something that you have to work on, right? Like you have to. So I think in that scenario,
Yeah,
it's a
that's
great.
not you have it or you don't. You like
No,
you
it's
went like Buddhist monk on that and like learn like train.
yeah. You have to learn to be calm in the storm, because matches are going to get turbulent, and whatever you're feeling, you still have to go up and execute. Like you got to go up and perform. If you want to win, like that's your responsibility. And
Yeah.
so you have to ask yourself, do you want to hand over the keys to your emotional trajectory to your opponent? Do you want to give them that power over you? There's a great quote, I think, from Aristotle. He says, if you are angered by something, if somebody angers you, you are complicit in the anger, right? Because you're handing them the keys to your anger and allowing them to drive you to that state.
You're really you're just giving your power away, honestly. That you're just giving your personal power away.
100%.
Showing your weakness.
Absolutely.
It's you just lose your
And a good player knows how to
personal power.
capitalize on that.
Right. And a good player knows how to say, okay, I acknowledge that I'm feeling fear, anger, resentment, whatever. That's going to go away now. And I'm going to proceed, not hampered by that,
Yeah,
And if
it's
you
like courage. It's like courage. Like I acknowledge what's going on, but I can
Yeah.
handle it and I'm gonna go forward versus
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
is bigger than me or
And the last 2 years, I've kind of gone out to more pro events, and you'd be surprised how many pro level players that I've been completely shocked that they behave. Honestly, some of them like entitled children.
Their head game was not what you expected.
To the point where if I had like a son playing pool and they behaved in that fashion, they'd be grounded and they wouldn't be allowed to play pool. I'd take their cues away and you'd have to go cut grass or.
So they're all
right,
being Earls.
Let's talk about the good ones then.
Yeah.
Show me about a great like show of sportsmanship or just something classy and don't say Alex because we can't use him for every single thing. Okay.
Yeah, no, I mean there's a lot. I mean, Tony Robles has always been like the sportsmanship guy. He's always behaves like a true professional regardless of anything, and I really admire him. And he's working on getting to speed. I have a lot of players honestly in Florida that I've grown up with. Like Jason Shearman had a great situation happen last year, and Tony posted about it. They played a match actually at the International Open. It was either last year or the year before. And Jason showed a really kind of high quality show of sportsmanship. I see it a lot more from the amateurs, from the juniors. I think on the American side that they're exemplary in class and conduct, and you see a lot of the kids kind of coming up showing that. Joey Tate has great sportsmanship, Landon Hollingworth, a lot of those kids. They're not these like cocky little,
Well, what would you say to the ones that they may be oblivious to the fact that they do have poor sportsmanship. They're not aware of it. But how can someone work on their sportsmanship? Because there's levels of it, clearly.
I think behavior is a product of your upbringing and your environment. If you're prone to misbehaving and doing this, I see this even at the pro level. It's almost like they're so good at pool and they see each other acting out. It's almost become like the cool thing to do to misbehave and act like brats. And it's like validated because the other good players are also doing that. And it's almost like, oh, well, if this person can throw their cue or smash their cue on the table, then it's okay. And I'm like, no, it's not okay. Stop being a jerk. Respect the game, respect your opponent, you know what I mean? And show that you have the emotional maturity of a 10-year-old, because there's 10-year-old players that I know that are coming up in the JIC that would never do that. And to my point earlier, would get grounded if they did.
So they get a hall pass till they're 10.
Yeah, exactly.
Nah,
Absolutely.
I'm kidding. I'm
No,
kidding.
but if you are seeing yourself behaving in this pattern, look around you.
Okay.
Who is your inner circle? Who are the people that you're frequenting with? How do they behave? And are you picking up bad habits that do those habits represent who you are? Are those habits what you want to portray? Especially when kids start getting to the age where they start thinking of themselves as being able to be sponsored or they want sponsorship. We've seen pro players lose sponsorship for misbehavior. You know, they get dropped from a brand because they like, I'm sorry, but we can't have you representing us because you had some outburst in the pool room, and you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It's a very legitimate thing. You got to think of yourself.
You're
Okay,
representing someone.
you're representing yourself. You're your own brand.
Yes.
Brands are going to come and tag on to you and say, I want you to represent us because I support you in your growth. I want to invest in your growth and your development. Like, you have to start having that mindset. So if you haven't had somebody around you that has done that thing and has walked that path and has secured those deals and is doing that, then reach out to other people who have and ask them questions.
How can
Be open.
someone reach out to you? An up and coming player,
Yeah.
you know?
I think, and a lot of the top players have said this, any junior that has a question or needs help with anything, they can reach out. Chris Reinhold has said that. Skylar is very open, as well with juniors and active with them. I would say send them a message on Facebook, introduce yourself, say, hi, my name is so-and-so. I really want to get better at pool. I admire this and this and this. I have a question on how I can progress in this area. Do you have any insight? Anything that you could provide me would be helpful. Thank you. And I appreciate your time. Very simple. That earnest, honest approach. I never turn people away. I've sat on Messenger with people who approach me and have asked questions, regardless of skill level, regardless of experience, just out of a genuine curiosity for the game. And I will give you my time because to me, it's important to not ever like I was them when I was coming up, right? I was the kid who was asking desperate for information, like, hey, anything that you can do to help me. What can I improve on? What do you see? What's between the lines that I'm not seeing? You have more experience than me. Like leading with humility and saying, this is where I want to go, and I see a part of that in you. Could you help me move forward? Somebody who doesn't answer you is not worth your time. You know what I mean? And you can just, and that's okay. You send out 100 messages to, you're going to get a ton of information and you're
Well,
going to be further along.
you're definitely a seeker. You have the beginner's mind, even with all of your accomplishments. You're definitely a role model for me, for a lot of pool players, that when your name comes up, they just, they say things about, you know, your game, of course, and, running out sets on people, but they also talk about who you are and your personality. And you're kind of in that same category of, you know, not Alex necessarily, because you're not cracking jokes or making everyone laugh, but you're also
Right.
humble, maybe more like Efren. And I'm not trying to compare you to Efren, but I
No,
can
but I
definitely see that you model yourself with those players. I see it.
yeah, I love, like, it's easy to get frustrated, but I love, like, there's videos of Efren missing with ball in hand and he just laughs. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, oops, scratches his head and like moves on. And I mean, that's the greatest player ever. And if he's humble enough to realize pool's hard, you know what I mean? I'm gonna blank, my brain's gonna wander at some point, and not take yourself super seriously, in that regard, and just, embrace that process. It's one less, you're one step closer, to being a better version of yourself. And I think the beginner mindset is huge. I really, this past year or two, I've really gotten into listening and appreciating more of like Kobe Bryant, him and just his, like, I grew up a Michael Jordan fan. My stepdad was a big Kobe fan, right? He would watch, oh, Kobe's the best, whatever. And I was like, Jordan's better, whatever. And that was my superficial take on it. I was like 11 years old. But now seeing, this was a guy who came up in the shadow of the greatest ever, and is probably the guy who got the closest. Some people think he got further in certain skill sets, and his mindset was relentless, and it was just discipline all the time, seeking influence, seeking inspiration from all parts of life, was a student of life, deconstructed the game, and got to a super, super high level of performance. And, to do that, knowing that a guy like Jordan had already come is a hard thing to do. And knowing that the whole world effectively doesn't want you to say that you're better than Jordan, you know what I mean? Like he's somebody that came up in that era and now is like applied himself and achieved. And he wasn't like a super freakishly talented guy. He just worked hard and learned how to combat with the challenge of high performance. And I love that. That to me is inspiring. That shows me that if he can
And
do it,
he picked Jordan's brain a lot too.
yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
you watch the videos on them, and
Yeah.
when they're playing against each other, he's asking Jordan questions. How do you do this?
And he says it, game recognizes game, right? They understand this is another person who has this intrinsic pursuit of excellence, right? That I have, and I can respect that, and I can only want to help people. I think the real champions, the people who are winners in life and in sport, they're going to offer those things freely because they know what the journey's about. I could tell you all the answers that I have in my head, but you still got to go do the hard work, right? You got to go out there and put the work in for you. And that's how you
apply what you learn.
Well, who's the last player you worked with that bumped up to the next level or won their event, or name somebody that because I know you're sharing some knowledge with people, and they don't have to be juniors, it could be anybody.
Yeah, so I have a friend of mine named David Mudre. He was actually in collegiate nationals with me. He actually grew up to be a filmmaker like me as well, which is really interesting. And I hadn't seen him in forever. And I went to Virginia Streetlights Billiards Academy. I was training there for a couple of days before I went to the Boston tournament earlier in the season. And I practiced there with him, and I kind of showed him just a couple things on kicking, how to map certain ranges of kicks and spin, and how to convert those between the two and be super accurate, whether you're kicking the short way or up table, and giving him a basic framework for it. And just an hour or so of that was really helpful for him. And he was like, this is kind of like blown my mind because nobody's ever taught me this kind of stuff. I taught Joey Tate a couple little things at the US Open a couple years ago, or the International Open a couple years ago as well, and a couple little things on that stuff too. And it's one of those things. I've been super reserved on the teaching side of things because I'm so immersed in integrating this information into my game, which is also a challenge. It'll probably be the hardest thing I ever have to do in pool, to spend almost 20 years playing on intuition and feel, and then turning and remapping my game to quantifiable system.
Tiger did it.
Huh? Right. Exactly. No, exactly. And that people, it takes somebody who's open to that and willing to kind of like sit there and do the minutia again and relearn. But I'm making a lot of progress all the time. And I'll wake up sometimes with an insight. Like yesterday, I woke up with an insight. I'm like, oh, I should do this in this range. You know what I mean? I messaged my coach like, that sounds like a great start to the day, And so, eventually these things are all going to click, and my intuition and the information will be unified. And then when that happens, I feel like I've been hovering, like right now my FAR goes around 710. And I feel like I've been hovering around 710 and like stuck in like first gear, maybe second gear.
Yep.
I've had moments where I've had these super connected like matches and I've blown people out of the water. You know what I mean? And that feels good, but there's a big gap between the getting there to where that's the everyday, I'm my standard is fourth and fifth gear, right? I want to get into that range. It's hard to do that. You know what I mean? So, but eventually that comes. And I think my approach, eventually I'm going to get there. So, I feel like a pebble, it's dropped into water. It's going to descend and go through the pond and get to its destination.
Well, I'm definitely cheering for you. Chris is just getting to know you. Chris, you were just saying something.
All right, so you're playing the Big Dog tournament this weekend?
Yeah, yeah, I'm going to Des Moines, Iowa. I'm here in Sioux Falls currently. My friend Matt Katie flew me out. Spent a couple of days here. I'm at his pool room called Rack City Billiards. So I trained today. Just got dinner and then came back here for this. And then tomorrow I'm going to put in a full day's practice as well.
So
Get
you
to
won't be at Shreveport next weekend?
Shreveport? No.
Yeah. Okay. Are you going to the Texas Open?
I think that's my next goal. I'm on the wait list for the Turning Stone because my schedule had changed around in August. I was going to go to a tournament here in Florida or in Florida. That was supposed to be a ranking event, but that got canceled and shifted around. So I didn't go. I intentionally didn't sign up for the Turning Stone because I was going to go play the Florida event, and that came off the calendar, unfortunately. So I'm probably going to end up going to Texas Open. If not, I'll just be home practicing.
All right, Chris.
Well,
I got a question. Do you have one? I got
no,
one.
go ahead.
Sponsors.
Okay, so currently, like I did the whole I was sponsored coming up. OB was my main sponsor. I had Hustle USA was my sponsor for a long time, as well. They would give me product, which is great. It helps, especially early on. Then I had a 4 or 5 year period where I wasn't competing as much, career and getting my life and stuff together. Now coming back in, I recently acquired my first, I guess, sponsor, Dominic Aragi, from Aragi Custom Cues. He's a cue maker out of Laverne, Tennessee. And he has built me my playing cue and break cue. And he has a really unique approach to cue design. And he's making these hybrid shafts, which are half wood, half carbon. And they play tremendous, super low deflection. And
You're one of the ones with that shaft. You're the one they're talking about.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
is it with you? Can you show me right now?
Actually, yeah. I have it right here.
Yeah, I gotta see this.
It's pretty wild. So this shaft is my playing shaft. This is what I'll be using. Here, let me okay, so this is let me turn off the blur because I think the blur setting is there we go. Okay, so this wood here, this is redwood lace pearl,
Uh-huh.
right?
Yeesh.
See how it just transitions into carbon at the seam.
Yeah.
So that's carbon fiber, and then all the way up to the top. And then I have a little tip cover on there now, which he sent me some of these. Give me a second. Just to keep the case, clean. It's got a little
You got a little mushroom there? No?
yeah, this is a new tip that he put on. It's a thoroughbred medium, which I'm super liking the thoroughbreds recently. But that doesn't bother me so much. Mushroom.
All right, so let's get the rundown on let's start with shaft and cue.
Yep.
What are they called?
Aragi Custom Cues. It's IRAGGI. Aragi. The cue is pretty sick. This is all again, this is Morado, I think it's called. This is MoMA, which is
You
Mammoth.
got your name in there. I can read that.
Yeah, it's pretty sick. He put a little sticker in there underneath the clear with printed out like a little cellophane sheet. More redwood lace pearl. Inside of this is all carbon and brass rings. So carbon, brass, carbon, brass, carbon, and then MoMA. And just repeating those ring stacks over all the way across. This is
And then
the
Anagi on the
Aragi. Yeah,
Iragi.
RAGGI. Yep. All the way up to the top, more redwood lace pearl, more rings. And then he has this like brass ring insert that he puts on here to add more front weight towards the cue. And it's also very just classy looking. And the pin is made out of brass.
That's a good looking cue.
Yeah,
Oh
super.
yeah.
I mean, very, very elegant. I mean, this thing is pretty wild.
So can people reach out to you? What's the deal there? Do they reach out to you and then you'll get some kind of
No, I think that the idea is probably just to reach out to Dominic and just let him know that they saw the cue, from me, and they wanted to see what it would cost to do something like that.
okay.
He also gave me this breaker, it's
Wow.
full carbon tube all the way up, and he did this really beautiful,
That's your colors, Chris.
yeah, little turquoise, brass, and this is like this really cool acrylic mold. he turned this pretty fast for me as well, and he uses acrylic material because it buffs out nicely. You don't have to clear it, and it just shines really good. So, and it's got a little thin brass and a G10 pin. Both cues are modified 3/810. So there's like, I can, interconnect, my playing shaft on the brake cue or vice versa. You know what I mean? So
You're
it's kind of,
turning heads with these cues, man.
I will get literally like no less than 40. What the hell is that? From people like
I mean,
turn.
half wood, half carbon. I'm sure that you can't
Yeah.
bring it out without someone saying something.
I took it out of, I got it right before Derby, and I went to Derby, and I took it out like one match where I kind of, felt like I had a little bit of an easier draw and I just wanted to get some reps on it. But then I played the rest of the tournament with my normal cue. And then after the tournament, I brought it out, hit some balls with it, and it got a lot of attention. People were like, man, what's this?
Right.
I had to try it. It's very low deflection, probably a little bit lower than the Revo. So, if you're into low deflection, it's there for you,
Good job.
So,
Okay. Are you, what kind of chalk are you using?
chalk. I've been using the Town V10 the last year or so, but last 2 weeks I've been using Triangle Pro chalk. So it's the same chalk that like the snooker players use. Ronnie O'Sullivan uses this chalk. It's cleaner than like Masters, but it has that feel, that texture of like a kind of a grainier chalk. And I miscue a little less with it than I do with Town. Town is really good, but there's certain conditions and there's certain times and there's certain strokes where I'll find that every so often the tip will slide off the cue ball.
Are you
Because of
sponsored by them yet?
no, I'm not. I
Let's
did
do
receive a
it, Town guys. Get a hold of Raymond.
yeah, I did receive a care package from Mika a year and a half ago. They sent me some stuff and I tried the Town brake tip, which I liked, but I would melt over and over again on my old I had the Mez G carbon brake cue, and I brake finishing down into the felt, and that soft kind of composite plastic kind of tip will just, the heat of the felt over and over again will just, and it'll melt the tip, and then that will leave the vault plate subjected to damage if it goes too heavily into that. And Mez with their G carbon brake cue, they don't sell the shaft independently. So if you mess up the shaft, you got to buy a whole new brake cue, which is $900. And I was like, okay, selling this tomorrow. I mean, like selling this tomorrow, and I'll get. And then thankfully, Dominic had already built me this cue, and I really kind of took to this actually brake cue is lower deflection than the Mez. Mez is kind of higher deflection as far as the brake cue. So stiff. It breaks awesome. I loved it. The balance is great. And
Now
with
we're
that,
talking about equipment, but I asked about sponsors and it wasn't a real direct question.
So
But are you
Dominic
seeking sponsors? Are you looking for sponsors?
currently, I mean, currently no, and I'll say why. I'm working on the launch of a video platform that I want to do, YouTube stuff, and I don't want to necessarily like have conflicts of interest, and I want to be able to support all the pool brands that are doing stuff. And I think there's a way to do that, leveraging some of my video skill to do content. But there is obviously like, product sponsorships are nice, like they're good. Like somebody sends me a product and they want me to test it and just give them a review or what it looks like. I'm happy to do that for people, and that would coincide with some of the stuff that I could do with the channel. But really, for me, the challenge is how do I get to my next ranking event? I'm focused the next 5-10 years on going to Matchroom events and making the Mosconi Cup. That's my dream. That's my goal. That's been the goal for me since I was a kid. I remember watching Corey Deuel hit that famous jacked up from the back rail draw shot, all the way back up table thing in the Mosconi Cup. And I was like, what is that? What was that? And I was like, I got to figure this out, and then started watching pool on TV. That was the first shot I ever watched live on TV, pool related, that I can remember, was that shot, the Corey shot.
Well, is there anything we can do to help you get to the next event?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel like I have some private people that have helped me and like sent money here and there to like, hey, if you if I can do this for you, that'd be great. Or if somebody is interested in getting a lesson or something like that, I'm happy to help them work on elements of their game. And, if that can help me, financially, that's great. I think especially once I get the channel up and running, that barrier will be less difficult to cross because I'll be able to provide more direct value for brands and they'll be able to do things for me that will help me in the long run. But if there's interested parties that want to help support and, chip in, I'm grateful and happy to receive that. You know what I mean? You can reach out to me on Facebook and send me a message and say, hey, here's $50 or what are your insights? Sometimes people will say like, how would you play this position? You know what I mean? And it's almost like a quick impromptu lesson, and based on their skill level, I'll give them a quick coaching on how to approach that scenario to, be as efficient as they can.
Well, I'm
So
pretty sure that just about any brand with any sense would want you to be an ambassador for them. You're
yeah,
very, very good representative. So, sponsor Raymond Linares and his endeavors because the pool world loves him. You're a class act. You're always helpful. You're very genuine, and I just think people need to support that.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. Chris, what do you got, man? We're at an hour and a half right now.
I think we've taken enough of his time.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the second longest interview that we've done. I mean, and he had a lot of insight. I learned a lot just listening to him.
Yeah.
I think he's going to do great things in the pool world. I hope that he does. I mean, look forward to meeting him someday, not on Zoom, just in person. That's why I was asking about these other two events.
I
Because
feel
we're
like
going to go ahead.
I feel like a lot of people wouldn't recognize me right now. I just shaved my beard off. I had the beard on for like 4 years and I just got rid of it 2 days ago.
And
So
your hair.
yeah,
And
exactly. And I got a little haircut. So it's like, I'm totally flying under the radar now. So people at least will get a chance to see
we're talking like a foot long beard or something
yeah, it was,
with some solid gray in it.
I got the grays. They're there.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I appreciate that. I feel like I could talk a long time about pool. It's something I'm really passionate about. And, you know, I would say that for people that want to get better, I think the biggest thing is to just avoid the trap of the distractions as much as you can. External noise, expectation, thinking about the outcomes before they happen. It's very easy to get trapped up in your own head about those things, and that can be emotionally disheartening. And even like things like wanting recognition. I know that's something that I've been guilty of in the past, saying, how come other people are getting recognition and I'm not? And all that stuff takes care of itself. You worry about your process and being the best person you can be, being the best player you can be, and focus on the things that you can control. Those opportunities are going to come for you. You know what I mean? And when you put the honest effort into them, it's like, I'm Christian, Bible says, to trust me and I will give you the desires of your heart, And so pool and achieving pool excellence is a desire of my heart, and I've wanted it for a long time. And I had to sit back for a lot of years and learn to be humble and learn to be patient. And that, I think, is going to ultimately prepare me to walk into a season of success in the future with humility and with patience and kind of honor for the people that are around me, because ultimately we're all pursuing the same thing. We're on the same journey, whether we're a 300 Fargo just learning or somebody who's a former world champion trying to get back after life and challenge humbles them. We're all pursuing something. So I think the more that we show empathy and the more that we keep that in mind, the more we can just appreciate people and give them the respect they deserve for achieving the things they're achieving, and then learn from their example, then as opposed to asking why it's not happening for us. So
Okay, I think we want to wrap it up. I want to say one more thing. I'm gonna let Chris finish it up, but can we do another interview with you in the future with some of our audience's questions? And of course, we'll send them to you for.
Yeah, I'd love that. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Chris, wrap it up. Let's go.
Well, guys, so this is just to end the video. Hey, Ray, thanks for joining us. Appreciate the time that you took to do this. This is our first Zoom meeting, so we had to do a practice run before we got this started. But I want to make sure that everybody that sees this video hits the like button. Make sure you share it with all your friends, and subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you get notified every time new content is uploaded. And we'll see you next time on the Pulling Around Show.
Thanks, Raymond.
Appreciate it, guys.
Next time.